So 12 marker with reference to extract C, so giving us a specific extract. We love to see that. Discuss the likely private and external benefits. So as soon as I read that, what am I thinking about? That big topic, the second biggest topic in Edexcel economics, the second highest yield topic in Edexcel economics, which is market failure, of course. Discuss the likely private and external benefits of viewing educational websites and TV programs. Okay, so taking a deeper dive into this, so it's talking about the private and external benefits. If it's talking about the private and external benefits, and we know it's talking about market failure, and again, it's a 12-mark question, what am I thinking? Firstly, it's private external, because it's benefits, it's definitely something to do with positive externalities, and positive externalities has a diagram, doesn't it? So that is probably how I'm going to, definitely going to include this in this question. It's basically, it's telling you to include it without explicitly stating it. So discuss the private external benefits, so basically a positive externality diagram, of viewing educational websites and TV programs. Now, let's just break this down into private and external benefits. So what is the difference between the private and external benefits? So if you think about the price mechanism, of course, again, it's just content knowledge, but private benefits are basically just benefits to the person themselves, so the GCSE student who's consuming the content, and then external benefits are the benefits to the whole of society. So what are the private benefits? Why would you go, it's like why are you watching this video? It's literally a perfect example, but the private benefits of you watching this video is, we'll say in terms of A-Level economics, you will get better grades. So you will get better grades. What does better grades mean? Why do you want better grades? Ultimately, let's think about like the overarching goal. So you want better grades. Why? Because you probably want to go to a good university, a good apprenticeship. But overarchingly, you want to have a good job that makes good money. So you want better grades to increase income. But now let's think about the benefits to society of you becoming more educated. If you are more educated, there's lots of benefits to society. Like firstly, educated people, it lowers the crime rates. Since if you're educated, you're less likely to throw your life away and go kill someone, because you understand the ramifications. You have a career, you probably have a family that you know that maybe you have to provide for. So you're less likely to do stupid things, you're less likely to hurt people, thus it means that lower crime rates. That's why we see lower crime rates in developed countries rather than less developed countries. Then just the more simple things, if you're more educated, you will probably make your future employer more money. So, but let's go even before that. By becoming more educated, what does educated mean? You have more skills. If you have more skills, you can talk about like human capital, and with better human capital, you're more productive. So, increased productivity. And if you're more productive, and everyone that goes to university, everyone that becomes educated is more productive, it means we have a higher skilled workforce, or just a more productive workforce. And of course here, you would obviously have to pick up your application marks. So let's have a look at extract C, which is this extract. So education websites and TV programs. Let's just find anything that backs up basically the benefits of these programs. So firstly, they're free. That means, I guess, what does free mean? If you think about demand, it means that if you think about the inverse relationship of price and quantity demanded, it means that of course there's going to be a lot more demand due to price being free. Therefore, what do we usually say when price? Just think about it in the way, because free. I remember when this came out, this paper, it confused a lot of students, because if price drops from £2 to £1, what do we usually say? We say that consumers are better off. Why? Consumer surplus increases. It's literally the exact same thing. If things are free, there's a massive increase in consumer surplus, since it doesn't cost every single consumer is going to be experiencing surplus. So yeah, that's definitely one point you get to also talk about. A private benefit is that consumer surplus increases. But yeah, what else does this say? So they're written by teachers and subject experts. So I guess well, like it says, it's more reliable, and yeah, the government are investing into it. So Oak National Academy, and obviously, honestly, I've never heard of that, but I've heard of Bite Size, but never Oak National Academy. But ministers have set aside 43 million to fund it. I think they should fund 43 million for my economics videos. But yeah, the application is a bit simple here. There's not really much that jumps out to you. But yeah, it's again, you have to basically use your own, like we planned here. You need to use a bit of your own thinking, and these will just basically just get you the application marks. But like I said, we would be drawing a big diagram here, so which is some of you may know it as just the positive externality diagram. Technically, it is a positive consumption externality diagram, but it doesn't really matter whatever you call it. So let's get started with drawing this. So of course, a positive consumption externality, supply equals marginal private costs, and since we're talking about the benefits, we're talking about private and external benefits, and this would also equal marginal social costs, since we're not focusing on the costs here. Now we have our demand curve, so demand equals marginal private benefit. So that means now, remember, this point here is our market equilibrium. But since in positive consumption externalities, the external benefit is greater than the private benefit, we have another curve which is our marginal social benefits. And now let's get this labelled up. So let's get these points labelled up. So what does this represent? This is QSE. So of course, where marginal social benefit curve intersects our marginal social cost, we call that the social equilibrium. So let's get that labelled up. And then what is this black point? This black point, of course, represents QE, which is just the private, well, it's just the market equilibrium. But what is the theory behind this positive consumption externality diagram? So we have the market equilibrium, which is of course here, and we have the socially efficient equilibrium, which is QSE. But why is there a discrepancy between these? And this is again just content knowledge, since consumers will consume at the market equilibrium. So without government intervention, we will consume here. And why do consumers consume here? And let's use the education example. When you're in school, maybe when you're doing your A-Level economics, you are only thinking about, yet again, your private benefits of better grades. Maybe that will get you into better university and therefore a better income later on. But that's the problem. As a consumer, you only think about your private benefits. And the big thing you don't think about are the external benefits. You don't think about the benefits to society of you getting more educated, thus meaning you underconsume education. So you only think about your better grades, but if you thought about the vast variety of benefits to society, like lower crime rate, like we've written here, increased productivity, better skilled workforce, more tax revenue for the government, etc., etc., you would consume education more. Thus, this is why there's this gap of the triangle of welfare loss, which is, of course, just here. Just share that in. This represents the potential welfare gain if consumers consume more. Like, for example, that is a prime reason why there is a minimum age of leaving education. For example, you're legally not allowed to leave education below 16. And this is because if you do leave education before 16, before year 11, the government knows there's massive loss in that potential welfare gain, where if you became more educated, like, let's just think, a student who leaves before completing his GCSEs versus a student who goes on to complete a university degree, who is more likely to commit a crime? There's a massive opinion that it's going to be the person who's left before doing his GCSEs, because probably had a tough upbringing, probably a harsher background. But this is the reason why the government wants to promote these individuals to consume more education, become more educated, as with more experience in like the workplace, surrounded by professionals, they're more likely to become a professional themselves, thus increasing outcomes for society. But just a tip again for all these externality diagrams. How do you work out where this welfare loss triangle is? You go from your market equilibrium. What is your market equilibrium? Where supply equals demand. So where do these two intersect? Let's go down from supply, and this is where demand is. So from the market equilibrium here, you go up or down to your socially efficient curve. And where's the socially efficient curve here? The curve here is above, so you go up, and now that is your welfare loss triangle. And only other things I would label on this is the gap between these two. What does that represent? It represents the underconsumption, because, like I said, consumers underconsume education, for example. Okay, so breaking this down into paragraph by paragraph. So for this first paragraph, of course, split into private versus external benefits. So how would I word this? The likely private benefits of viewing educational websites and TV programs is that it will lead students to have better grades, thus reaching their overarching goals of better income. Then I would go to the extracts. Let's try to find something that backs this up. Monthly visitors. Then just explain how this happens. So the private benefits can be seen are where demand equals marginal private benefit. So basically the free market equilibrium, you can even label that on if you want. Free, I'm sure free market, FME, obviously write it in your exam, free market equilibrium. But this can be seen as a free market equilibrium as when consumers consume more of these free educational content, they're likely to learn more. If you learn more, they like to score better in their exams, therefore receive better grades. And it means that with better grades, this a bit of a chain of analysis of how the pathway to university works. They go to better universities, better apprenticeships, so end up earning better, higher income. And then you can justify why it is a private benefit, as consumers that are consuming this good are benefiting directly from the consumption, because themselves, the students themselves, are benefiting. They are benefiting from consuming the good. I would probably do this is, I think you can speak a lot more about the diagram in the second paragraph. So I'm going to make a massive second paragraph, but the first one might be a bit less theory based. Now, with regards to evaluation, this question is slightly dull for, well, this part of the question, the private benefits, is slightly dull for evaluation. But let's just think about it. So we're saying that there's lots of benefits of students consuming education online. But what actually happens, think about yourself. So you're watching this A-Level economics video on YouTube. What can sometimes happen when you're actually watching A-Level economics videos and you look at your suggestions? You might see like a KSI video and you might click on that, so you may become distracted. Or a lot of times, even though on this channel there's pretty much everything you need for an A star, have you gone through the entirety of this channel? No, because there's, you can say, compared to like your school, there's almost like there's a lack of structure and you don't have enough motivation. It relies a lot on your personal motivation to go through all the videos, to pay attention to all the videos, for example. So a great evaluation point saying, you can even talk about the addiction of these, the PED values, or the addictive nature of these electronic goods. So however, in evaluation, the degree of the private benefits depends on the addictive nature of electronic devices, as due to like YouTube or these websites they're consuming this education on, they may become distracted, they may have a lack of motivation, thus reducing the degree or reducing the benefits of reducing the potential of the private benefits. Another one, a bit more of a technical one, is to do with the diagram itself, and it's to do with how hard it is to actually measure these welfare gains or these welfare losses in cases of negative externalities. But in reality, these students are consuming these websites and they may be getting better grades, but there's no tangible way to measure that. There's no tangible way to measure the students who are getting better grades due to consuming the website, or maybe students are getting worse grades due to consuming the website. There's no way to measure the benefits, the private benefits, and the external benefits. So it's a bit weird. It's hard to quantify it. Okay, and for the second paragraph, the external benefits paragraph, I would word it something like, I believe the likely external benefits of viewing educational websites and TV programs are several benefits such as increased productivity, better skilled workforce, and things like a lower crime rate. Give a bit of application from the extract, basically whatever you didn't use last time, anything you want to use, but anything to back it up. And then how would my chain of analysis go? I'd probably just actually kick off by using a bit more of the diagram, because I want to include a lot of diagram theory here. And by the way, when I was labeling the diagram, I forgot one label, which is of course the external benefit. It's just a gap between your marginal private benefit curve and your marginal social benefit curve. But how would I word this? I would probably say something like consumers underconsume, like the thing I said before. They underconsume at the market equilibrium, thus leading to they miss out on the potential welfare gain at the socially efficient equilibrium. As if we consume at the socially efficient equilibrium, for example, more people become educated, it means that there's better human capital, better skilled workforce, and basically just leading to all this. Means workers are more productive. If workers are more productive, it makes firms more money. That obviously has benefits in themselves. You can basically go a million routes here. If workers are more productive, they're more skilled. They can provide more for their family. Better living conditions. The government has more money. They can invest, etc. There's basically a million things you can say. More education, lower crime rates, better living conditions. Again, better living standards. Just good stuff. And with regards to evaluation for this question, for this side of it, for this paragraph, I would probably say something like time lag works really well here. However, it depends on how the external benefits depend on the time frame. As in the short run, it's going to take a long time for the external benefits to be translated into society. Why? If you improve the level of education of GCSE students or even primary school students, it's going to take nearly 20 years for you to see something like increased productivity, lower crime rates. As, for example, if a student's in their SATs, they are like, I don't know, 10. And by the time they get a job, they become established, maybe buy a house, they're about 30. So it takes about 20 years there, or whatever time period you can say. It takes a long time, basically, to see these external benefits. So you can say, however, it depends on the time frame. Or time frame, instead of using time frame, you could say, depends on time lag. Another valuation point is, of course, classic opportunity cost. Spent 43 million on online services. If we just reinvest that into some normal in-person schooling, maybe it would actually lead to better benefits, a better society outcome. Now, a classic thing I get with Edexcel Section B in my live classes is that students don't feel satisfied in their answers. They don't feel like they're hitting enough economics marks. And it's just kind of how Section B goes in Edexcel Economics. They don't actually ask you that many deep theory questions, besides sometimes a 15 marker. Sometimes it's actually quite a good theory question. But your only usual big theory questions are the 25-mark questions, where you really can show the examiner how much you know about economics. As a lot of these questions, they literally just scratch the surface. They want you to show a bit about it, but you don't really need that much. And it annoys a lot of students, but just for the students who may be thinking that, just don't worry, and you'll be fine.